Hey everyone, it is TK Friday. On today's episode, this is going to be part 2 of last week's video where I did the opening steps of Dave Karp's image, Mineral Creek Sunrise. Today I'm going to do a full edit on it, so sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and stay tuned. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. It is TK Friday again, my favorite day of the week, and thank you all so much for joining me again today. Well, I had a lot of requests to do a full edit of last week's opening steps of this image by Dave Karp, South Mineral Creek Sunrise, and today I will give you that full edit because a lot of you have requested it. By the way, if you don't yet own the TK8 plugin for Photoshop, you can click on my affiliate link found in the description below this video. Just click on that link. It'll take you to the TK web store where you can purchase the TK8 plugin for Photoshop along with training videos. And if you use my promo code DK15, you'll save 15% off your entire purchase. And when you do that, you're supporting the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. And for that, I truly thank you. Well, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is save out a sky channel and a foreground channel because we may need those later. And I like to call this setting yourself up for success because if you need to use those later in your editing process, you'll have them. By the way, don't forget to download the PDF notes for this full edit as well as the image. Now, if you followed me last week, you may already be up to the point where I'm at. But if you haven't, you can go ahead and download this image. I'll leave a Dropbox link for the notes and the image in the description below this video. In the notes, I show the normal way that I save out a sky and a foreground channel, but I'll show you another way right here on the video if you want a tighter sky and foreground selection. And this is the way you would do that. This is a different method than what I show in the PDF notes. The first thing you want to do is click this icon on the combo or CX panel to select the sky. Photoshop will select the sky for you. After it selects the sky, you would come up here to the My Channel icon button, click on that. Click on Active Selection, then click on your mask calculator, click Subtract, and now you want to invert the selection, so you select the foreground. So click this invert button and then click equals. And now you have the sky and the foreground has been subtracted from it. It's a little bit tighter selection. And then what you want to do is save it. So click this button right here and we'll call this sky and it'll save it to the channels and click OK. And then what you want to do is invert this selection. So click the invert button again. And now we've selected the foreground. Now click the mask calculator again and click subtract. And now you're going to invert it again. And now you'll be subtracting out the sky. Click equals. And now you have a cleaner foreground selection. And now you want to save that to your channel. So we're going to call this one foreground. And then just simply click OK. And then you'll see down here in your channels, you have a sky and a foreground channel saved out that we can use later in building masks. Now that we saved those channels, we can get out of here. So click this X on the multi-mask panel. And now let's move on to the first step here. What I want to do first is, in the sky here, I want to lighten up all the light areas in the sky, just to sculpt this sky out a little bit. And I'm going to do that by painting through a selection. Now, there's a lot of different ways of doing this, but let me show you one way in particular. But just remember, we all have our own ways of doing things, but I like to show you different ways of doing things. And then you can use the one that you like the best. So let me show you something a little different. I'll use one of my favorite TK8 tools, and what do you think that is? If you think the mask calculator, you're wrong. But if you think, I love the mask calculator, by the way. But if you think color grading tool, you are right. So let's click on this color grading tool button right here. Now, there's one thing we have to do. You don't see it on a layer down here yet. You have to click this plus. Very important to attach it to a layer. Now, the color grading tool is a curves adjustment layer, but it's unique. It's very user-friendly. In other words, we can adjust shadows, midtones, and highlights with this slider after clicking on one of these blocks, but then you can very easily color grade anything. And the reason I'm using the color grading tool here is because if I decide to do some color grading, it's there for me. Now, I could have just as easily used the curves adjustment layer. All I want to do here is lighten up the midtone. So I'm going to click on this midtone block, and I'm just going to lighten up the overall midtones of this image, which in turn is going to lighten up these lighter areas up here in the cloud. Right about there, I think, is good. Then I'm going to X out of here because I got to get to the multi-mask panel. So when I click this X, the color grading tool goes away, but my adjustment doesn't change. And now I'm going to click on the My Channels button and choose Sky. So click on Sky. And now for the Mask Calculator. Okay, so click on the Mask Calculator button. I'm going to do an intersection. So let's click the X for intersect. We're going to X out of this here. We're going to go to the luminosity button and click on that because we're going to find a luminosity mask that will work, meaning a mask that isolates the highlights. And that's a lights 1, that's a lights 2. What I'm trying to do is isolate the light areas up here in the sky. And I played with the different channels here to see if I could get a tighter selection. And I found out that yellow gave me the best selection. See, some of these darker areas get a little bit darker. And I'm only interested in the lighter areas. And now we have to make the calculation. So click the equals button. And now you'll notice we have the sky selected. And the light areas are all the highlights. The darker areas are the more shadowy areas. Now we're going to output this to a black mask, painting with a white brush through a selection. And it's nice when you paint through a selection because with a selection, you can build certain areas up more than other areas, and that's really nice. So you get to sculpt the sky the way you like it. I'm going to use a brush with 20% opacity, and it can be a larger brush here, and I'm just going to paint over some of these lighter areas here, just like this. And we can see here's a before and here's an after. Okay, so it's not doing a whole lot, so I'm going to hit it again. Now, every time I lift the brush and paint again, I'm going to be allowing more paint to come through. So I can stroke in this area. I'm lifting the brush and painting, making this lighter, and coming up here, making that lighter, maybe over in here, maybe in this area here, I'll make it a little lighter. This is what I mean by sculpting. I can just, build up stronger in other areas and not as strong in different areas, and then it looks more artistic. And this is what I call an artistic license. You have an artistic license here that you can make this look just the way you want it. And the mask is protecting you. So let's take a look. Here is the before, and here's the after. But we're just sculpting that sky. Those light areas are getting lighter. Now you always have this opacity that you can pull back, and we can also click right here on this curves adjustment layer icon and click our color grading tool. And if I click on the mid-tone block, you can see that's where I'm adjusted to. So I can make it lighter by dragging this more to the right or darker to the left. And then if I wanted to color grade it, maybe warm it up a little bit, I could do this and give it a little bit of extra warmth in there if I wanted to. So that's what I meant by using the color grading tool. It just makes it a little easier, a little more user-friendly to do. I didn't do any color grading in the notes, but I think here today I feel like it. So there we go. Now that is the highlights in the sky. Next, we're going to work on the shadow areas of the sky. I want you to notice I do have a selection. We need to get rid of this selection. I'm going to use another color grading tool. And if I apply one right now, it'll put that sky mask on it, and I don't want that. So click this button on the combo or CX panel, depending which one you're using, and that'll deselect your selection. We can click the plus and we'll add another color grading tool. And now I want to darken. So let's click on that mid-tone block again, and I'm going to drag this slider to the left now and darken tones. Maybe to somewhere around here. We can always come back and readjust later. Now I need to make a mask. So let's X out the color grading tool. Let's click on the My Channels button. Let's click on Sky again. We're going to grab the mask calculator. We're going to do another intersection. So click on the X out of here. Now we're going to find a luminosity mask to target the darker tones. So click on the luminosity mask button. And here's the darks 1, darks 2, darks 3. And I think darks 3 isolates nicely. These gray areas are the darker tones. Let me try the yellow channel again. And yeah, I think I'll go with that yellow channel. I could have went with RGB, but yellow's a little more isolation. Now we're going to click equal to make the calculation. And if we wanted to lighten these selections up even more, we could use the levels adjustment, but I think it's okay. I'm going to leave it just the way it is. All these darker areas are the light highlighted areas, so they're protected. We're going to output this to a black mask, white brush, and oh my goodness, we have a warning. What are we going to do? Don't worry. It just says no pixels are more than 50% selected. No big deal. Just click OK. And you can see there's my midtones pulled down right there on the curve. And I have a black mask, and now I'm painting through a selection. And I'm going to use that 20% again and just start painting over darker areas here. And I can be really liberal here because you know what? The mask is protecting me. So again, every time I lift my brush, like I'm lifting it here and painting across. Lifting, painting, so I can darken other areas more than other areas. Let's take a look. Here is the before, and here's the after. And don't forget, you can always come back and click on this icon for the curves adjustment. and then click on the color grading tool. Click on the midtone block, and you can see I can lighten it up by going this way or darken it even more by going more to the left. Okay, and then we also have the opacity that we can adjust if we went too strong. But here's the before and here's after, and I think that looks good. I think the sky already looks better. And let's try cooling those shadows. Let me take this midtone block and just drag it a little more blue, somewhere right about there. Here's the before, here's the after. Yeah, that's okay. I feel like a little more blue shadow today. I'm looking in the water and I can see a little bit of a blue cast on some of these areas in the water. I'd like to get rid of that. So to do that, let's get rid of our selection by clicking this button right here on the combo panel. And let's exile the color grading tool. Nothing changes. Let's grab a hue, saturation, and adjustment layer. So click this button right here. Let's grab the target tool and select some of this blue here. Click and drag to the left. I'm going to take that saturation probably pretty much the whole way off. Maybe not quite the whole way right there. Now it's killed my sky and the rest of the image, so we need to take care of that. What we'll do is put a black mask on there. And now we got our color blue back. Let's grab a color mask, click this icon right here, and let's target some of this blue tone in here that we want to get rid of, and click OK. And now what we can do is lighten this up by clicking the slider and dragging it to the right, and almost the whole way over. Right around there I think is good. And now we're going to output this to a black mask, white brush, painting through a selection. And now we can simply, at 100% opacity, I'm at 20%. If you type 0, you'll get 100%. And now I can simply paint off the blue cast in the water, just like this. And we're painting through a selection, so we may have to lift a few times and paint over. So I'm lifting. Every time you see that going across there, I'm lifting. And I'm just looking for areas where there may be some blue in the water. And I think that's good. I think I'm just going to maybe a little bit over in here. But take your time and make sure you get it all out. Remember, I'm doing a tutorial, and sometimes I may miss something because I have to really move along here. But there we go. And I don't know if you can see it, but here is the before and here is the after. And I got rid of that blue cast. The next thing I want to do, we have this really cool water rushing through here. And don't you love this composition? It's a really great composition that Dave has. I'd like to darken up some of the darker shadows to give this water a little more turbulent look. And here's how we'll do it. I'll use the object selection tool. So click on the object selection tool. Make sure you have the object finder checked on. And you can see right here, I need to refresh mine. There's a little exclamation point. So when I click this, you see this turns around. It's refreshing, finding objects. And if you hover over objects, they'll turn pink. And you can change the color of the overlay, but I've showed that in other tutorials. But if I hover over the water, you can see, oh, look, I've selected the water. So then all I have to do is left click that with my mouse, and you can see it's selected. Now it's missed a few areas out in here. So I'm going to grab my lasso tool. I'm just typing my L key. And if you hold your shift key down, we can lasso around these parts that it's missed, and then that will add that to the selection. So there's my water selection. Now that I have this selection, let's go ahead and save it as a channel because I'll need it again. So let's click this button on the combo panel. You'll find it here on the CX panel. This will let you save that out as a channel. I'm going to call this water and click OK. And now you can see I have a water channel saved out. Pretty cool. And now one of my favorite buttons, the My Channels button, we'll click on that. Now I could either click on water or active selection. Let's click on active selection. It doesn't really matter. And there's that water selection. Now let's grab the mask calculator because I'm going to be burning, so I want to target dark tones. Let's click X for intersect. Let's X out of here. Let's click on the luminosity mask button. Let's try darks 1. Darks 2, and I think I like darks 2. Let's get a levels adjustment and refine it a bit. So click on this levels button icon. I'm going to tighten this selection up. I'm going to pull the shadow slider over to the right just to tighten it up a little bit. Take the midtone slider and drag it to the left, maybe a little bit more. Take the highlight slider, drag it to the left to lighten things up. I'll drag the midtone back to right about here. I think should be good. And now I'm getting a really nice selection of those shadows. All the lighter areas are the shadows. Now we need to complete the calculation, so click equals, and now we've just selected the shadow areas of the water. Now all we need to do is output this. I'm going to use a burn tool, so I'm going to click on the left side of this burn tool. This gives us a 50% gray layer. We'll be painting with a black paintbrush. So let's click on here. We'll be painting through a selection as well. We're in the soft light blend mode. Now with a nice soft edge brush at 20% opacity, I'm going to start burning my shadows. Now, when I lift the brush and paint again, they'll get stronger. So that's one pass. I'm going to paint again. And again, some areas you can paint stronger on, like lift and paint more. But this is really nice. It'll really add some nice turbulent effect to that water. So let's take a look. I'm going to paint over here a couple more times down in this lower right-hand corner a little bit. Let's take a look. Here is the before and here's after. So pretty good. Now, if I went too strong, I always have this opacity that I can take it back. And I can also tone areas down if I click on the gray paintbrush and paint over an area if it was too strong. Like up in this area right here, let me grab the gray brush and I'll make the brush a little bit smaller. I'm still at 20% opacity, but I'll run it across here a couple times and see how I can just lighten that up a little bit. So that's why I like this 50% gray layer. It's really nice if you want to blend your burning. Really a good feature. Well, I still have that gray brush. I think I'm a little strong here, so I'm just going to go over this a couple times. When you're doing this at home, take your time. I'm doing a tutorial, so I got to move along rather quickly here. And now we're going to do some dodging of the light areas of the water. So let's come back to My Channels. Now, we have a selection. We don't have to worry, because as soon as I click on the My Channels button, that selection goes away. Let's click on Water, grab our mask calculator. So click on the mask calculator button, click X to intersect. X out of here. Let's find a luminosity mask. So click on the luminosity mask button. That's a lights 1. Here's a lights 2. And that's targeting those light areas rather nicely. And I think I ended up trying a blue channel. I felt I got a little bit better separation. And now let's grab the levels adjustment and let's tighten up that selection. I'll tighten up the shadows and I'll tighten up the highlights. And I think that should do it. Now we can click on equal to make the calculation. And now we need to output it. This time I want to dodge, so I'm going to click on the left side of the dodge tool. That's going to give me a 50% gray layer, overlay blend mode, white brush, painting through a selection. And I think I'll drop my opacity down to 10%. I'm going to type my 1 key. Now we're painting with a white brush. And all I want to do is just lighten up a little bit of these highlights on here. Just like right in here. Just a little wee bit. Not too much, but I think that should do it. Let's take a look. Here's the before and here's the after. Yeah, I like that. Something I like to do is whenever I dodge and burn is put those dodge and burn layers in a group. That way I can adjust the overall opacity of the dodging and burning. So right now dodge is selected. I'm going to hold my Command or Control key down and click on the burn layer. Now they're both selected. Now you'll notice I have a selection here. Before I put this in a group, I need to deselect this selection. So click this button on the combo or this button on the CX panel to get rid of the selection, or else that would put the mask I just made onto the group layer. Okay, and then here's the group layer icon to put these two layers in a group. The left side will put it in a group with a black mask, the right side in a group with a white mask. So I want a white mask, so I'm going to click on the right side. And it's not a bad idea to name all your layers, and I always do that, but when I'm making a tutorial, I don't have time. But now I can shut off the entire dodge and burn layer group like this, before and after. And now I can open up this group and adjust dodge and burn separately of each other with the opacities of each one of those layers. And then I have the overall opacity on the group itself, so that's nice. I'm going to go ahead and collapse this group. And now what's next? What I want to do next is give my midtones a nice contrast increase. And to do that, we're going to click on a curves adjustment layer. Click on the luminosity mask button. It's going to be midtones, right? So we have midtones 1, midtones 2. They get lighter as we go up in midtones 3. And I think 3 is too aggressive. I'm going to click on midtones 2. And now I want to output that to that layer I just created, that curves adjustment layer. So we're going to click this icon right here. And now it's on that layer. And now what I want to do is increase my contrast with an S-curve. So I'm going to take the highlights and pull it up, and take the shadows and pull it down. And you notice it's only giving me a nice contrast boost in the midtones. So here's the before and here's the after. And don't forget, you always got the opacity you can pull back. And also a nice side effect by increasing the contrast, it gave me a little bit of a saturation boost. So check it out. Here's the before and here's the after. See how the saturation got a nice little boost. So that's a nice little added benefit. Now my image is a little too dark, so we can remedy that. Let's grab another curves adjustment layer. Let's go back and click on the luminosity mask button. Let's grab another midtones 2, and we'll output that to the curves adjustment layer, clicking this button. And now we're going to change our blend mode from normal to screen. So I'm going to click this button on the combo panel. And now I've light my midtones. Now that's too light, so I'm going to take the opacity of that layer the whole way off and just build it up slowly and stop where I think it looks the best. And I think maybe right about here. I'm at 56. On my notes, I think at 74, but today this looks better for me because, you know, every edit is a little bit different. I may even pull that back a little bit more to right there, 51. Here's the before and here's the after, so a little lighter. And here's without the contrast boost. That's without and that's with the contrast boost, so I like it. The next thing I want to tackle, see this light green area up in here? It's drawing my eye over to it. And this grass too, but I'm going to take care of this area first. I'm going to go ahead and darken up this green grass. So how can we do it? Well, I'm going to use a tried and true method, and that is a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to use a multiply blend mode, but I'm going to put a black mask on it first to hide what I'm going to do, and then change the blend mode to multiply. So now I have a curves adjustment layer, black mask, multiply, blend mode. I think I'm going to use a zone mask to target these light areas. So click on the zone mask button, and I'm going to click right here on this lighter area and click OK. And now I can tighten up that selection. So this is the slider. You can drag this to the left and you can tighten up your selection. See how it's really tightening up this area? The light area is what I'm interested in. So I'm going to get that tightened up, and I also want to lighten it so I can get a really nice adjustment. And I think that's going to be good. And now all I need to do is output this. I'm going to output this to a black mask painting with a white brush through a selection, so click this button right here. And now we can go ahead and paint here. And now with a nice small soft edge brush, I'm going to start painting. I'm going to paint at 10% opacity. I'm going to type my 1 key to get 10%. And I just want to start to darken down some of these areas that are lighter in here. Remember, every time I lift my brush, like I just lifted it, I'll paint this again in this area. In here, every time I lift my brush and paint again, I'll add a little bit more paint. I'm going to get up in here, in between this tree here, up on this area here, and right in here. I'm lifting a couple times, getting down in here, coming back behind here, and maybe across here and right here one more time. And I think right here, I missed a little spot here. But take your time. I'm going to get this right here. Let's take a look. Here is the before, and here's the after, but it nicely just darkens that down. Now I just want to slightly darken down this green grass, so I'm going to do that same thing, but right now I have a selection, so I'm going to go ahead and deselect by clicking this button on the combo panel. I'm going to get a curves adjustment layer, again a black mask in the multiply blend mode just to hide the darkening. This time I think I'll use a color mask, so I'm going to click on this color mask button icon. We're going to create a color mask. And I need to select some of these lighter green tones down in here, maybe right there, and click OK. And now let's go ahead and lighten that up to maybe somewhere right around there. Let's grab a levels adjustment, and I'm going to take the highlight slider and drag it over to somewhere right around in here. And just pull the shadow slider to the right just to tighten it up to maybe somewhere right around there. I think that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and output this to a black mask, white brush, painting through a selection. And then I'm going to try 20% opacity. I'm going to type my 2 key to get 20% opacity and see if I can just darken down this grass in here. And that mask is really going to protect me. I can go with a bigger brush. I don't need that small of a brush, and just paint in here. It's only going to be targeting green, by the way. And on this corner, I may just darken it a little bit more. It is in a corner here. And I think that is pretty good. Let's take a look. Here is the before, and here's the after. And if you went too strong, remember, you have this opacity that you can pull back if you went too strong. And I'm going to pull it back to maybe around 80. So again, let's take a look. Here's the before, and here's the after. Now, we are almost done. Let's try a little bit of soft pop. So here's my TK actions. I have a button here on my combo, or this one on my CX. I like this one here because I have it when I open up the actions stay open. Let me click on soft pop, and you notice when I do, my action stayed open. So this way, if I need another action, I could grab it real quick because I'll be using a vignette action very shortly here. Let's take a look. Here's before soft pop and here is after, and I like it. It's a little too strong, so I think I'm going to pull back the opacity, and I think I'm going to take it down to like right about here, 77. Here's the before and here's the after, and it also helps the color, gives me a little more saturation, gives me a little more detail popping on the image, and I think it looks good. It's a little dark, so now I want to lighten up the midtones a little bit. So I'll click on my luminosity mask button. And this is my tried and true method here. I'm going to use a midtones 1. I just want to lighten up the midtones slightly. I'll put it to a curves adjustment layer in the screen blend mode. And check it out. Here's the before and here's the after. So it just slightly lightens up those midtones, and I think that's good. And if it's a little too strong, I can even take this back a little bit. Here's the before and here's the after, and I think that looks really good. The last thing I want to do is add a vignette. So I'm going to click on the vignette action. I tried a freehand vignette, but I ended up liking just a straightforward vignette the best. So I'm going to click on vignette, and I'm just going to click OK for the Gaussian blur. It picks the right Gaussian blur for me. Here's the before, and here's the after. Now that's at 50%. It's a little strong. I'm going to double click right here and use blend if. So I'm going to drag this slider over to right about 15 right here. And then if you hold your Option or Alt key down and click on the right side, you can split this and give it a nice graduation. And you can see how it graduates across there and gives you a nice blend like that. And I think somewhere right around there looks good, and I'm going to click OK. So check this out. Here is the before and here's the after. It's just protecting some of those deeper shadows. And that's basically it. I'll use my before after action so we can see where we've come from. We started out here. I'm clicking the before after action. We started out here and now we end up here, and I like it. So that was my full edit. Well, there it is, everyone. Another TK Friday comes to a close. I hope you enjoyed this full edit today. Thank you, Dave Karp, for the use of your image. If you enjoyed the tutorial today, please give it a like and share it with your friends. If you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe and click that bell notification icon, and then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get a notification. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and I'll see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing!